Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me today, not only do we have Broad Street Hockey's own Kelly Hinkle, but the prodigal son has returned from his hero's journey. Charlie O'Connor, Philly's #1 hockey beat writer, is with us today. Kelly, I just saw you reacting to the theme music. That's the first time I've heard it live. It sounds like Brohim, right?
I like it.
Yeah, that's why I chose it.
It just threw me off a little bit. I was like, wait, have I heard this before? I don't think I have. Yeah, it was good.
All right, so here we are, the Philadelphia Flyers. They're 1-6-1 in their last 8. It ain't going well. But we have some updates. So, Charlie, you were at practice today. I want to start with the roster stuff, and then we have Michkov, Tortorella, the new guys, all that to get into. But some updates. We saw Jacob Gaucher sent down. Tony Dick has been waived, so they can return him to the Phantoms. Hopefully he clears in anticipation, I assume, of Kuzmenko and Pelletier joining the lineup Saturday. Before we get into that, though, how about the injuries, Charlie? Risto, Tippett, Paling, Zamula, anything on them?
Yeah, actually some updates. So Ristolainen skated today. He was out there. Unclear whether he's going to play on Saturday, but seems like a good sign. Obviously, Team Finland very happy that Ristolainen skating because they're going to need him during this Four Nations tournament.
They're out of guys.
Yeah, seems like he is trending in the direction of at least being available for that. Whether he's available for Saturday, I guess we'll find out. Good news on Ryan Paling. He was out there today. First time we've seen him. He was wearing a blue non-contact jersey. He was also wearing one of those tinted visors, which a lot of guys coming back from concussions will use. I would be shocked if he plays tomorrow, but this at least seems like he's trending in the direction of being back after the break. And it was a bad one. You know, I heard some things about the fact that like he was struggling. He would have good days and bad, but the fact that it was, you know, a couple weeks later and he was still having bad days, that was a severe concussion. And those things are scary, but really happy to see him back on the ice today, even if it was in a non-contact form. Today was more of a skills practice than a real serious practice. John Tortorella actually wasn't even on the ice with the players.
That's why they were allowed to do skills.
Yeah, they were allowed to do skills. Exactly. So Paling was back on the ice. Good sign for his availability coming out of the Four Nations break. I would say No and Tippett. I believe I don't know if the Flyers straight up announced it or if it's just understood, but he's not going to play tomorrow. They're going to give him the break. And then he'll be back after the break, I would assume. But that's my understanding of that situation. Zamula, I don't know. He was not on the ice, but it doesn't seem like he's coming back for Saturday either. So only guy out of the injured guys who I think has a legitimate chance to play on Saturday is Ristolainen. I think everybody else is going to be out.
All right, well, that is good news. It's good news for Risto's trade value. It's good news for Team Finland. And honestly, it's just good news in terms of watching the Flyers. Believe it or not, one of their better defensemen. So we will we look forward to Risto's return. Anthony Richard, we kind of know what he is, and we've all enjoyed him. He is a favorite amongst our commenters and our Twitter followers. Everybody loves Tony Dick. They're going to try to get him through waivers. But Jacob Gaucher being sent down, Charlie, I don't really think he stood out too much in his time. He wasn't really given too much of an opportunity to stand out. Pretty limited ice time. Any reaction to what you saw out of Gaucher in his time up with the big club?
Yeah, I don't think he was terrible, but he certainly didn't stand out in any way. I think the big thing that I hesitate to use the word hurt because I think this was always going to be a short-term thing. He was just getting a look. But the thing that hurt his chances of staying more than anything was the fact that Rodrigo Abols actually looks pretty good. Yeah. So if they were going to choose between one of the two, Gaucher very clearly has gotten outplayed by Abols, who legitimately looks like a decent enough NHL player in these first few games he's been. He's made an impact pretty much every game. He's been noticeable, and last night he showed legitimate chemistry with Matvei Michkov, which is pretty darn important, I would say. So that's cool, but it definitely hurt Gaucher. And same thing with Richard. You know, maybe Richard would have stayed up had Abols not impressed as much as he has, but he's impressed, and he deserves the right to stay. Now, will he stay once guys like Owen Tippett and Ryan Poehling are back? Unclear. But in the here and now, those guys aren't back yet. So Rodrigo Albols gets at least one more game to make an impression and see if they'll keep him around coming out of the Four Nations break.
And now we get to the guys who have finally arrived. Maybe the only people in Philadelphia right now with more travel issues than Charlie O'Connor himself.
Yeah, right. They beat me back to Philly.
They did. They were at the game last night. Charlie, where the hell were you? Oh, you were stuck in the airport. That's right. This is just fun for me. I don't know. Charlie being inconvenienced is a bummer, but we got to make a bunch of jokes about you disappearing last night on the show. So we at least got some content, Chuck. So Kuzmenko is here. Pelletier is here. Is the paperwork done?
It seems like the paperwork is completely done with Kuzmenko. Pelletier, unclear. Pelletier did practice today. He's obviously with the team, but he didn't skate on one of the 4 lines. We shall see if he plays. It does seem like Kuzmenko is going to play Saturday. If I had to guess, I would guess that Pelletier will play as well, because why not? But hey, you never know.
Maybe he's just not accountable enough for his travel issues, and John Tortorella will have a problem with that. Hinkle has, I think, maybe the most important question about Andrei Kuzmenko.
Okay.
The people demand to know if he is as handsome in real life as he appears to be in photographs.
He was a very gregarious personality today when we interviewed him. Yeah. I mean, obviously English is not his first language. So there were some back and forths where he didn't fully understand a couple questions. I asked a question about why he chose to waive his no trade clause to join the Flyers, and I think that just had a few too many words in the question that were like not words he hears on a regular basis. So we had to kind of go back and forth in that to get there. But he was a really, really nice guy. He seemed very, very happy to be in Philadelphia, had a big smile on his face most of the interview. So seems like he's going to be a fun guy to cover. I guess we'll see how he plays on the ice. But one thing that was kind of cool, and he talked about it today, that he was just dying to get on the ice. He skated, obviously, during practice, but then he stayed out there for an extra like 40 minutes by himself, just kind of shooting pucks and skating around. And we asked him after the practice, and he was just talking about how he wanted to get back on the ice. He was kind of going stir crazy. So that's pretty endearing, I would say.
It seems like a good thing for a guy that has been described as made in a lab to make John Tortorella mad. So, like, the extra work is probably not going to hurt.
It can't hurt.
No.
I don't think anybody's had anything bad to say about Kuzmenko as a person.
No.
It's just that, he's not particularly defensively responsible. He's not a great skater, which seems to be like the thing that annoys John Tortorella the most about players, is if they're not fast. I mean, he seems to dislike Sean Couturier basically exclusively for that reason. And he's just inconsistent. So it would make sense that he's the kind of guy that John Tortorella wouldn't like. But as I've said on the show before, I can never predict who John Tortorella is going to like.
I mean, truly.
I did not think he was going to like Owen Tippett, and loves the guy. And I thought he was going to love Sean Couturier, and he apparently doesn't. So I don't know.
I have just really appreciated. We've gotten a lot of Vancouver and Calgary like responses and tweets about Kuzmenko, like from the Flyers account, from our account, with a lot of Briz gifs when describing his personality. Just kind of a fun guy. Yeah. So if nothing else, hopefully he gives us some good stuff to talk about. Hopefully he entertains us, if nothing else. And honestly, what could the power play get worse? Like, he's got to help in some regard. Maybe be like 16% or something,
I really want to see him pull out a banana and a Pepsi on John Tortorella's bench, honestly. That's what I need to see.
Oh, boy.
That would be great stuff. Yeah. So it's been what, like a week? What, it was like Thursday into Friday when they pulled this trade off, right?
Yep.
So we'll hopefully see both guys tomorrow. It seems as if we'll see them. Like Charlie said, Pelletier not like skating with a line today, so maybe his paperwork isn't taken care of, or maybe it wasn't during practice. Maybe it is now. We'll see. It's insane that this is what's going on, and visa issues are stopping a team from acquiring a player after a week, but we shall see. They are there. But it's been over a week since the trade, and we haven't all like been together. And I realize we're not like physically together. We have a remote show today, but we haven't actually got to do this since the trade.
Yeah.
Now that we've had, 8 days to think on it, how are we feeling now that it's in the rear view? It's not just like, oh, wow, they actually did something, and I don't know who these guys are, and the cap space, what does this mean for other guys? Like, how are we feeling now that we've processed it?
I want to hear what Chuck thinks because he wasn't here to talk about it.
Okay. Well, I kind of split it up into 2 separate trades, and one trade I'm totally cool with. The other trade I don't love for a lot of reasons. Like the Morgan Frost part of it, which to me is functionally like Morgan Frost for a 2nd round pick. Fine. That's I don't think he was ever going to bring back a first. I just can't envision a world where anyone was going to give up a 1st round pick for Morgan Frost, especially knowing that he's going to need a new contract. And we talked Morgan Frost to death on this show, that he just doesn't have a long-term fit with this team. The only way he was going to be able to is if he established himself as a clear-cut top 6 center. And we've seen enough to believe that that's just not him, that from a consistency standpoint, he's never going to be that guy. So totally fine with getting decent value back for a guy who I no longer thought fit with this team long-term. Joel Farabee, I think the thing that rubs me the wrong way about that is just that they are absolutely selling low on him. And it's not even that I understand why they're doing it. And their thought process was his value was only going to get lower because he was getting passed on the organizational depth chart. And let's sell him now while we can get something for him rather than have to either buy him out or pay in Shane Gostisbehere style to get rid of him. So I get it. I get where they're coming from. And I do respect that Danny Briere made a final decision on a guy in Farabee who could burn him in the future if Joel Farabee plays really well and becomes the guy who he looked like he was becoming the first 2/3 of last season. It's naturally going to rub you the wrong way when a guy who you think has talent gets sold clearly at a low point of his value. And it just makes the trade, I wouldn't say it makes it bad. It just kind of gives you a bad taste in your mouth of, man, if they would have traded him last year, if they would have traded him another, when he had more value, did he have more value this summer? After he had the bad finish of the year, but still had, coming off the 50-point season, which was his best season in the NHL, could they have gotten more for him then? I don't know, but this does feel like you're selling him. I guess they didn't think it was the nadir of his value. They thought it could have went even lower, but it's a pretty low point of his value. And that just does rub me the wrong way, even if I understand why they felt like they had to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's, looking at, like, my initial reaction was like, hey, they made a decision on 2 guys that I made a decision on a month ago, and I'm happy that they see what I see. The Farabee value thing, now that I have like a week to think about it, yeah, you should have just done this last summer. That said, if you waited, like maybe this, like lowest so far, like if he all of a sudden, instead of the 81 game sample size that I keep referencing, has a 102 game sample size of scoring at a 30-point pace or lower, then what? How do you even move on from that $5 million, especially considering, like Danny Briere said, we couldn't get anyone to take the full salary. That's what this was all about, was opening up that salary. And I appreciate that they made this determination. I made this, I think maybe last night or a couple nights ago. I don't even think it was like, we think these players are bad, they can't help us. I think they just look at their roster and made an honest assessment. We have Matvei Michkov, we have Travis Konechny, and then we have like 7 middle of the lineup, decent enough complementary players. We don't need to overpay them. Like, you're already paying Farabee 5. Who the hell knows what Frost is going to get? Somewhere between, 4 or 5, like somewhere probably in there, just based on age, position, pretty decent production, even though it's like disappointing to us. And now full circle, I find it very funny that the 2 guys that we got as draft pick compensation for Braden Shen are gone, and Braden Shen is once again on the market.
I was going to say back on the block. Bring him home.
I just find the whole thing very, very funny as I saw that, like, right before we went live, that maybe Toronto is going to get Braden Shen. Somebody looking at Braden Shen.
As Matthew McConaughey said, time is a flat circle, William.
It's just, this is where we are. Like, these are the kinds of determinations they need to make. Probably would have been best to make these like trust your evaluation last summer and go, okay, we like Tyson Forster. We want to see more of Brink. We like Cates, but like Cates wasn't what he was last summer. Like, how do you get rid of a center when Morgan Frost is the only one you know? Maybe you don't love his production, but it's the only one you can actually count on in terms of the center position. They were in a tough spot. Maybe they sold low. I'm happy to be moving on, and now we're going to get to see these guys play.
Yeah, I think like with all trades, like you can't really evaluate it for a little while. Like Charlie's right. Like if he turns into a good player with Calgary, then it's like, well, did you evaluate your talent properly? Were you using him properly? Like, why couldn't he do that here? And if he continues to just be what he has been this season or worse, then, looks pretty good for Danny Briere.
I expect Joel Farabee to be better than he's been for the last calendar year in Philly. But that is a really, really low bar. I think he is a good middle six forward at the end of the day. And they don't need to pay him $5 million through his prime. Like,
I think
they can figure that out. Like, here's Tyson Forster. He'll do better. Jakob Pelletier, while trouble staying healthy, not thought of as an offensive player, he has produced at a better rate when he's been in than Joel Farabee, which again speaks to how poorly Joel Farabee, like the points were just not coming for him. But that's where we are with this organization. They have to make these determinations, and they just didn't fit. For whatever reason, they didn't fit.
Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit about this in our post-trade video we did the night. But one thing, the night of the deal, but one thing that I do like about this trade, and I talked about this in my my column on allphly.com for diehards. If you're not a diehard, become a diehard and read it. It's still up. You can find it very easily. But one thing I liked about it, not just that Briere made a decision, because he showed in this trade, he showed that he can make tough decisions on guys that he liked, but it goes beyond that. It goes to the fact that when they shipped out Kevin Hayes and Ivan Provorov and Tony DeAngelo, that was basically them saying, look, these guys obviously don't fit. Either they don't want to be here or the coach doesn't think they've got it. That it's abundantly clear that these guys just don't fit. It's a no-brainer. Got to move them out for the better of the rebuild. Fair. These two guys, though, they wanted to be here. They were not problems in the locker room. They were, in fact, very popular in the locker room. And I feel like this does send a message to the rest of the team that the bar is now raised, that no longer it's, well, you just got to listen to John Tortorella, try your hardest and be a good teammate. Like, that was basically the bar that was set with the Hayes, Provorov, DeAngelo stuff. Like, oh, they didn't meet that bar. All right, they're gone. Well, now the bar has been raised to, okay, you still obviously got to do all those things. You still got to listen to the coach. You got to be a good soldier. You got to be, part of the culture, but you also have to live up to reasonable expectations. And I think what this trade tells the rest of the team is that being a really good guy, it ain't enough anymore. Maybe in the early stages of the rebuild, it was enough for us to keep you. But now, you got to be a good guy. You got to be part of the culture. You got to buy in. That's important. But that's not going to save you on its own. You got to perform well on the ice in your role. And I think it does send a message to everybody else that, not like a, terrified that you're going to get traded every day, every game, but it does maybe motivate guys a little bit more that, they can't just be leaning on the fact that they're real good guys and everybody likes them. They got to actually meet and exceed expectations to stay a part of this. And I don't think that's a bad message to send to the organization.
Very good, actually. Yeah.
No, that was, I think, like my favorite part of this, other than the $5 million in cap space and just having content, to talk about. He did something. He did it to two guys, like Charlie said, popular in the room, good teammates. It's uncomfortable. It's maybe an unpopular decision. I like that. I like that Danny showed he is able to separate. Like, oh yeah, man. Like, he talked about man, I loved Morgan Frost. Like, that was like my first job with the Flyers organization, was kind of being Frost's mentor when he came back around. So I just like that he showed he's willing to do more than the, oh yeah, man, like everyone hates Ivan Provorov because he's a dick. I don't know if they hated him, but like they'd prefer not to be his teammate, maybe. Like that's an easy move to make. And you get like the first round pick, you get other stuff, you trade Sean Walker for another first. That is an easy trade to make. Yep. These aren't. This was a tough decision, and he was still able to come through. So that's kind of where I am with it. We have to take a minute before we go any further, so I can tell you about our presenting sponsor, Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Very happy with my result last night. Finally cashed a bet, and it took a ton of research. It really, I felt it. I don't know what pushed me to do it, but that Alex Ovechkin anytime goal came through, and I just feel like a genius for putting some money on the greatest goal scorer of all time to score a goal against a team he scores a lot of goals against. It was a tough one, but regardless of your bet, regardless if you're betting the most obvious thing or you're going deep, whatever it is, you got to bet at Bet365. I've been using it all year for my futures, my player props, everything. And I think you'll love Bet365 Sportsbook as well. And we have breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, win or lose. All you got to do is sign up, use code PHLY365. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And while we're here, I got to tell you about Game Time. Just one home game left, but there's a huge homestand coming up for the Flyers. You are going to want to get in on it, if nothing else, because it seems like Matvei Michkov might be heating up, and the best way to get in is with Game Time. They are the absolute best secondary ticket marketplace on the entire internet, thanks to features like Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff to only show you the best deals on the greatest seats, and all of the features that made it the number one app, secondary ticket app, are still in place. The all-in pricing, the seat views, the low price guarantee, and the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. What time is it? Game Time. Anyway, one more thing before we move on from this. Charlie, you just got a chance to be with the team a little bit on the road. How are they feeling? We heard right away, like, yeah, man, it's a tough one. We know it's a business, but like, we like these dudes. And also without the boost, like someone might have been Hathaway.
Yeah.
Sometimes you lose a guy and you're bummed, but also they're like everyone else. Hey, new guy, new friend. This is fun. And they didn't like get that boost because they joined the team in the second period last night. Like how are the boys feeling?
It's not the happiest, I would say, but it's not just because Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost were traded. Like, they're bummed for a lot of reasons. Number one, they're losing. Yeah. So no one's in a great mood when you're losing. They're on a 5-game losing streak. They're falling out of the playoff race. And while I don't think every fan necessarily wanted them to be in the playoff race, the Flyers certainly did. The Flyers wanted to be in the mix, and they are now in a very precarious spot where there's a good chance that the final 2 months of the season are going to kind of feel like just playing out the string. That's a bummer. Guys are injured. Owen Tippett's out. You know, there's players that, you know, Ristolainen missed time, so they're not having some of their big horses, you know, at the top half of the lineup. They're not playing. It's a lot of things kind of compounding on itself. And then there's the fact that the two new guys, they can't seem to get here. Now, finally, they're here, but all this past week, they've been waiting on 2 new guys. And it's just like, yep, these issues, well, wonderful. So, no, I don't think the team is in like the happiest mood at the moment. That said, I don't think it's because they're just mad that Frost and Farabee got traded. That's probably part of it. They're bummed. They miss these guys. They were very popular guys in that room. But I think it's just kind of like an everything hits at once sort of thing. And that's sort of why the mood is a bit down at the moment for the Philadelphia Flyers.
I mean, understandable. Like I said, like I started the show saying, they have like 3 of the last 16 points. You know, no one's going to be in a good mood after that. They got shut out 3 games in a row. They blow a third period lead last night. I can't imagine everyone's like super excited right now with the state of the team. And also, like, a couple of their buddies got shipped away. That's difficult to deal with. All right. Not difficult to deal with, at least for us, maybe for Torts. Matvei Michkov. These jokes are all in jest, everybody. Like, I don't know how many times I have to. Some people say I'm a shill for Torts, and other people say I'm always trying to get him fired. So I guess I'm doing my job. Like,
you contain multitudes.
If no one's happy, I guess I'm doing it right. Anyway, I'm going to start with the Michkov end of this. First of all, Charlie, who knew the high-end playmaker that they needed to pair with Mish was right under their nose all the time? And Rodrigo Bulls with that awesome pass on the second goal last night. But Kelly and I talked about the first goal at length last night. I have my thoughts on this, but I want to ask you, because you watch the film, you rewatch every game, you're more in tune with like their tendencies and philosophies, the details of what they're doing. What is the difference between Michkov's first goal last night, where he's like at the far blue line when he gets the pass, and the play that got him benched against the Islanders a few games ago?
It's a good question. And the most obvious answer is, well, one worked and one didn't. And look, Mike Richards, I think, actually spoke to this in that conversation with Nasty Knuckles when he was talking about Daryl Sutter. And he said, look, like some guys, Daryl Sutter gave some extra leeway to, but it was very much like, hey, if you're going to do it, you better work. Otherwise, it's a bad play. So that's certainly part of it. I do think, though, that this one was just better timed. You know, if I remember that goal that was scored, like that was clear puck possession on the part of what game was that? Who was that against?
It was the Islanders. I think it was Holmstrom.
Yeah. They had clear puck possession, and Michkov just kind of was around. He was very clearly hoping against hope that there was going to be a turnover. This one struck me as a little bit more strategic in that there seemed like a legitimate chance that the Flyers were going to get possession back. So Michkov cheated a little bit, and it worked, obviously. So to me, I just think that, number one, it worked this time. It didn't work that time. And hey, if you're going to cheat, sometimes you're going to get caught and you're going to get yelled at. This time it worked, so obviously everybody's happy. But I do think also that this play, there was a higher percentage chance that the Flyers are going to get the puck back quicker than there was in that Islanders game when they were just holding the puck. Like they were cycling, that they were passing around, and Michkov's just kind of hovering outside the blue line.
Yeah, that's basically what I read, because I went back and watched the goal that they gave up on the play. Michkov got benched, and then watched what happened again on his first goal last night. And I think that's part of it. Like, it looked as if maybe that puck was going to come loose and Couturier had a chance, but like it never does. And that's the area, like where Holmstrom has that puck. That's the area in the zone of their defense that Michkov is supposed to be defending.
Yeah.
Like there's a guy there, the puck is there. He needs to at least make an attempt to be near him, and instead he goes behind him. And even if that puck does come loose like he's hoping, Couturier's outnumbered. There's 2 Islanders and there's only Coots sitting there. Like the chance of that puck getting to him, even if it does have one of those, like, you know, it's loose, maybe we can bang it up the boards, those mesh points like Alain Vigneault used to call them, it's a low percentage chance. Last night, there is nobody on the right wing point. Like that man went deep into the zone on offense. And I think that creates a green light for Michkov. Like, well, if I'm supposed to be defending this area and there is no longer a player in this area, I should go out here. Like, why not cheat a little and see if they can get me the puck? Like, I just think it comes down to the read more than anything else. Not so much the cheating, because reference this all the time. this is part of their offensive strategy. Like, the guy on the weak side, if it looks like there's going to be a turnover or a blocked shot or something, needs to take off so they can create a rush because they can't score any other way than by being a little aggressive. It's just, I think the read was wrong. And then, of course, you have the back and forth where he just doesn't put his hand up and say, "My bad, coach." He yells back, and the accountability end of all of it. But I really think that was the major difference.
Well, at least John Tortorella knows now that he went a little too hard on that one.
That
30 minutes on the bench was a little too much.
That made my head explode. At least he acknowledged it, I guess.
But it is a little bit like
him being like, "Yeah, I'm emotional too. Probably should have played him in the third period. If I could go back, I would. My bad."
Yeah, no, it's not how it works, John.
God, really, John?
You've been coaching 150 years. You've learned these lessons before. Please apply them now.
But that's
learning lessons.
But that's who he
games.
is. That's who he is, though. He's an emotional guy who flies off the handle and probably just got in his head that, I'm ticked off at this kid and he's never going to play another minute for me, and then calm down. He's like, "Oh no, actually he's great." And honestly, if a coach did that to him, and by him I mean John Tortorella, he probably would have responded the exact same way, because as Tortorella acknowledged yesterday, I obviously wasn't there to ask this question, but Kevin Kurz did. Torts acknowledged that they're not dissimilar in terms of their personalities. And we said that, like, going back to the offseason, the things that are said about this kid, like, sometimes it was framed as, he's kind of not the best teammate. He's a little, whatever. And it really comes down to his competitiveness. Like, he just demands so much of himself and everyone else that he can come off a little abrasive. And I mean, that's the coach. Yeah,
like, I'm a Torts fan, but this is part of the John Tortorella experience. But that's really what I wanted to get into by setting it up with the Michkov stuff, and to have an excuse to talk about what was maybe Misha's best game as a Flyer, at least in the last 2 months. But really, he was everywhere from jump last night. There are games where he's like had 2 points and you go, yeah, he made 2 plays. And there are games where he had no points and it's like he could have had 10. Last night, 2 goals, and he was at least noticeable on most of his shifts. I thought it was one of, if not his best games, and that's just fun to talk about. But the Tortorella end of this, we talked a little about it, but we actually haven't shown the player poll and gotten into this thing that came out, I guess, earlier this week. A whole bunch of NHL players were surveyed anonymously. Almost 4 out of 10. Almost.
Look how far ahead.
A 93 player survey by The Athletic has John Tortorella at nearly 40%. 38.46% of the 93 guys said he is the coach they would least like to play for. And I guess Mike Babcock, even though not an NHL coach right now, was eligible, and he finishes 3rd in the poll. But Torts blows everybody away. Bruce Cassidy's 2nd at 12.3%, and here's Torts at nearly 40.
Insane.
This is kind of just funny more than anything, but there is this issue, Charlie, because Danny Briere hinted at the idea of going big game hunting. One of the main reasons for the trade he made was to open up that $5 million. They've talked about the dead money coming off the cap the next couple of summers. And if you just look at their roster, you go, yeah, they can draft all they want, but at a certain point, they're going to have to go buy somebody, whether it's a free agent, a restricted free agent offer sheet, trading for a guy. And, most really good players, a lot of them have some sort of trade protection. You are going to have to get a really good player to decide to come here at some point.
Yeah.
John Tortorella next year is in his lame duck year. Do you think this has any effect, on how they plan to move forward with John Tortorella? Listen, we think he's a good teacher, and so do I. But if 4 out of every 10 NHL players don't want to play for him, that's really limiting your pool, no?
Yes. And what I will say is that no, I don't think that this was like a come to Jesus. Oh my God, we need to move on for John. Like they know this. This player poll was not telling them anything they didn't already know. That said, the fact that they surely know this, because if anything, Keith Jones is plugged in enough around the league to know that there are a lot of players who just don't feel like, and it's not even just the like, well, they're not tough enough. Playing for John Tortorella is exhausting. And some guys are just kind of like, why? Like if I have a choice,
hard enough, right?
Why would I willingly and intentionally put myself through that? Especially if you're like on the older side, let's say you've won a cup, you're 29, 30 years old. It's like, why would I torture myself and play for John Tortorella, who is, maybe he's a good coach. Maybe he's even a great coach, but why would I put myself through that? And it even goes beyond the idea of free agents, Bill, because another way you get top end players is by trading for them. But a lot of times what happens is you trade for a guy where the only reason why he was available in the first place is because he hasn't signed a contract. So you trade for a guy who is coming up on needing a new contract. And those kinds of guys, you need to then convince them to sign a contract with you, to sign the extension. Like that's what Carolina's trying to do with Mikko Rantanen. It's like, we'll trade for you as a rental, and then we're going to try to convince you to sign with us. Now, is that going to be harder to do for the Flyers as long as John Tortorella is head coach? Honestly, probably. Is it make it impossible? No. And it's a very, everybody raves about the quality of the room. The Flyers are a big market team. They have great facilities. They have a lot of things going for them. But I would say a lot of players will be hesitant to commit to the Flyers. Not all. Some guys legitimately want to play for a crazy person like John Tortorella. But there are a lot of guys who are iffier on it, who think like, do I really want to put myself through that willingly? Yeah. It's something they have to account for. But I also think that the Flyers have never been operating under the assumption that John Tortorella is going to be the head coach forever. And I think that is a big part of this. So they view Torts as somebody who can help them build and teach and develop. They think he can play that role. But I don't think they've ever envisioned him still being the coach 4 or 5 years from now. You know what I mean?
What about 1 year from now, though? What about 1 year? Because I don't know if you've been on the show, Charlie, when I've said this, because I don't remember the last time I saw you. But like, I think that Tortorella did come in here to do a thing, like you just described, establish a culture, a standard, build a base for the team to be built on top of. And he's done a very good job doing that. And now that that's done, I don't know now if there's anything else to get from the John Tortorella experience. Like at this point, I feel like he's given us what we needed from him. Thank you. But like, as far as like coaching the team toward a Stanley Cup, I don't know if he's the guy.
No, it would be, I can't imagine that like that's part of the plan. Like
if they
based
keep
on
him
his
past
age
next year, I
and
think
what
it's a
he's
problem.
best at, like what he's doing here isn't what you do. Like I've said all along, like, yeah, man, I am mostly okay with a lot of Tortorella stuff, but what happens when Michkov yells at him in Game 7 of a playoff series and doesn't take accountability and we're down a goal? Like, are we teaching hard lessons in that situation? I don't want to find out about that, and listen, we got a long way to go before it's like, oh yeah, the playoffs. Like this team is we're gonna do tankathon later. They're 6th from the bottom and dropping dramatically. So like a long way to go for there, but it does raise the question of how they're going to handle this contract situation. Coaches typically do not want to go into a lame duck year because players know that a coach is, yeah, man, he's on his way out anyway. Now, different situation. 1, Hall of Fame coach. 2, empowered by the organization. He appears to be more than just like the head bench boss. He is, for all intents and purposes, like part of the front office in some
John
way.
Tortorella.
He's not just, oh yeah, he draws up our scheme for tonight. Like he's a little more than that, it seems. Charlie, I don't know if you have any like inkling of what they're gonna do, but what do you think they should do with Torts going into the last year of his deal?
Well, if they're going to keep him, you got to give him a year extension. You can't let him go into, or a 2-year extension or whatever. You can't let him go into the year a lame duck. You can't. And that's That's very clear in my mind that would be the dumbest idea. It would just be like, we'll just let it ride. That ain't going to work. I'm not out on John Tortorella nearly as much as I get the sense that fans are. I wouldn't really have a major issue if they brought him back for one more year. That said, I would then think that would be the last year, because I'm not necessarily expecting them to be able to turn the corner in the next, definitely not next year. Like, I can see them making the playoffs next year if they fix the goalie situation, maybe go out and get a center, sure. But they'd make the playoffs and lose in round one. I don't want John Tortorella coaching this team when they are regularly competing for cups, but I don't think that's going to start next year anyway. So I just don't feel the urgency to do it now. Like, if they were to do it, I would get it. It wouldn't be like something I obviously disagree with, because there is an end game to the John Tortorella experience. And if you want to make that end game be this season as opposed to next season, sure, it was going to happen at some point, but I'm not of the opinion that like they have to get rid of him.
I think the issue is that I also don't believe that next year they're going to be any kind of team resembling good. But I do think that next summer is the summer when they should probably start bringing in some of these big games that they're kind of hinting at. Like, that might be the summer that they start throwing offer sheets at a bunch of those guys that are eligible for them next summer, because there's
by next summer,
not this summer,
26.
Okay,
26. Yes,
okay.
yes. So I feel like if we are considering that 40% of sampled NHLers do not want to play for him, and next summer 26 is the year that they're going to start trying to build something bigger than what they're doing now, is having John Tortorella on contract a problem? I don't know. I feel like it could be. And I just feel like it's hard enough. Like, Danny Briere's job is hard enough that having another roadblock just seems silly to me. Like, you have enough against you. Like, make it easy on yourself.
My biggest, it's just like the timing of it. One has to assume Mike Sullivan is done in Pittsburgh after this season. They haven't done it yet, but we've long believed maybe that's part of the line of succession. Those two, Tortorella and Sullivan, have a history together, coaching Team USA, all that stuff. Maybe this is the plan. Like, okay, and then we hand it over to one of his disciples, and here we go. If he's unemployed this summer, go get him.
Yeah.
And then what happens with Torts? We kind of estimated last night, like, maybe he's still like quote unquote head coach, or has some other role where he's doing what he did. What was it at the end of last season, where he's not even behind the bench? He's upstairs, and you have your other guys running the bench. Maybe some sort of situation like that.
Honestly,
I don't think that would work.
I've always thought that hockey would benefit from having a coach up high. Like, don't they do that in football?
Oh,
like,
I think I think they should ban coaches from the bench. I think that would make the game so much more fun to watch.
The coordinators generally are upstairs. Like Vic Fangio in the Super Bowl is going to be upstairs. The head coach obviously is on the sidelines. I don't think that would work. Like, they could do it. I mean, we've seen what they did this year with the whole collaborative approach to the power play. I just think similarly to the collaborative approach to the power play, it would be dumb and wouldn't work. Because the thing with Tortorella as coach is that as long as he's still the guy in charge, as long as he is, it's still going to have this feel of, everybody kind of worried that they're going to get scratched or whatever, because that's just the way Tortorella coaches. And he coaches in large part on fear. He does, on fear and discipline. That's his style. Now, I do think it's coming from a place of, I want you to be better. I don't think it's coming from an evil place, but it is a lot of, guys are worried that they're going to be punished if they don't do what they're supposed to do. As long as he is still the guy calling the shots, whether he's on the bench in games or not, as long as he's still the guy in the room driving the bus, it's still going to have that feel. So to me, if you're going to move on from Torts, no half measures. That's a half measure. A full measure is kick him upstairs, and turn him into a senior advisor. That to me is the play. Now, you mentioned Sullivan. I don't know what Pittsburgh's going to do. I really haven't been following that situation that closely, but like, yeah, it seems like it would make sense at some point for them to part ways. Another guy who other people have theorized, I don't think you guys will be quite as excited about this one. Rick Tocchet. I mean, obviously there is a real connection there with Jonesy. They're buds. Vancouver right now is kind of for lack of a better term, a shit show.
And who's their coach?
And
Rick Tocchet. Maybe we don't bring in the guy whose fucking room is whose room is a disaster right now. Like, why do we have to do this every time?
But seriously, like he has apparently a mutual option at the end of the year where like the Canucks could let him go, but he could also say, I'm just done with this. That this is a mess. My 2-star players hated each other. We traded one of them away. Now you may be trading the other one away. I'm just done. I'm getting out of here. So I've heard some people bring up the possibility of like, hey, if he's available, do the Flyers go get Rick Tocchet? He would be a very traditional Flyers move. And Rick Tocchet's obviously thought very highly of, not just in league circles, but obviously by the guys running the Philadelphia Flyers. So look, I'm not saying that that's what I would do. I'm not necessarily as high on Rick Tocchet, the coach, as I think a lot of people in the NHL are, but Keith Jones, I believe in particular, is very high on Rick Tocchet, the head coach. So,
all right, before we go any further, I got a little more coach stuff I want to get to today, but I got to tell you about Glatt Hair Restoration. Glatt Hair Restoration is now under the direction of Dr. Morgenstern, a highly respected plastic surgeon. If you've been listening to John Marks and the decade plus he's been on the air in this town, even before he got here to PHLY, you know that he's not just a spokesperson. He is a patient of Glatt Hair Restoration, and that man's hair is still looking great 10 years or more after he got the procedure done. I think, okay, some things have changed. You still get the same peerless approach to care, the same expert team, same unmatched Glatt system, same state-of-the-art location, and the same stellar results, because each member of this exceptionally trained team brings 30-plus years of industry experience. Hair restoration is all they do. From laser light therapy to non-invasive TED treatments, vitamin supplementation, topical and oral medications, PRP and stem cell restoration, and hair restoration surgery. Whatever your course of action is, bald is now optional. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glatt Hair has the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit glatthairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started today. While we're here, sometimes you got to take care of your hair. Sometimes you got to take care of your body. If you have aching joints or cramping hands or your back's out of whack, Rothman's got you. At Rothman Orthopedics, they've been practicing specialized care, and it's been their passion for over 50 years. Their mission, it's high-quality, compassionate, affordable care rooted in research leading to new treatments and better outcomes. Each Rothman doc is laser-focused on their specialty, whether it's hip, knee, spine, you name it. They have a team for each body part right in your backyard so you can get back to your specialty, because they're Rothman Orthopedics. They're specializing in orthopedics and you. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today. I think Mike Sullivan is a better coach, but there's just that glaring problem of nobody wins championships with more than one team. Not in just hockey, all sports. It doesn't happen. And so I'd kind of maybe prefer Tocchet. Also, I just think it's cool, man, Rick Tocchet. But if they were to go find the next great young coach somewhere, that would be fun. But that's never going to be what they do. So,
no. Could throw all of Comcast money at Carl's brother.
Yeah, why not?
That seems to be the guy that the fans, the online fans want the most. Yeah.
And you'd have
Flyers
to pay him so much money.
He is looking for a couple of things. When Jim Montgomery got fired and someone tweeted what his record was with the Bruins. I think it was the last thing he did on Twitter, just retweeted or liked it. And it's he had a 700 points percentage and you fired the guy. He hates just how quick the trigger is. He doesn't want to uproot his whole family for 2 years for no reason. Mm-hmm. He wants a big bag of money because he can be I don't want to make situation. I don't want to make this comparison because of the other end of it, but the Paterno of Denver. He can be there for the next 50 years and just run their organization if he wants to and make plenty of money doing it. He wants stability and like maybe a little bit of a say in the front office and a big bag of money, the Flyers are uniquely qualified to do that. It's like what they're doing with Tortorella right now. You're not just the coach. You're a guy who's part of this thing. They could do it, but I doubt they go the college route ever again. Charlie, I ran this hypothetical by Kelly last night, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
Oh, get ready for this, Charlie.
It's
all right. Here we go.
Again, believe me, this is hypothetical.
It's hypothetical.
It's some unlikely stuff, because it revolves around the power play not being bad. But how about this hypothetical I came up with after watching the Forster power play goal off the Andrei one-timer last night? Now, let's say Michkov comes back from the break. He's re-energized. He's real good for the final 25 games. He's close to that point-a-game player he was for the first 27.
And to be clear, I'm more or less expecting that.
I kind of am too, but that's just part of it. Michkov is Michkov again. He's a star. And let's say Emil Andrei, he stays up and he helps the power play a little bit. Let's say Kuzmenko maybe helps out on the power play some. Let's say they're at a 20% clip for the final 25 games of the season, Chuck. Is that enough for you to keep Rocky Thompson around?
Is it enough for me or the Flyers?
Either.
For you.
Let's take piece by piece here.
Okay. Is it enough for me? No, it would not be enough for me. Now, I have said this from the jump. I hold to this. I wouldn't have a major problem if they kept Rocky Thompson. I just don't think he should continue to coach the power play. If they want to keep him on the coaching staff and have him coach the forwards and then bring in another guy or person, it doesn't have to be a guy, I guess, to coach the power play who's better at it, that's fine by me. You don't have to fire him. But I've seen more than enough to tell me that he's not going to be the one who fixes this power play. I've seen enough personally. Look, we're not even putting Matvei Michkov on the side that he's been the most comfortable on, like his entire career on the power play. He was
there a little more last night.
I'm just saying.
These
are obvious things that are just not being done. No, there's nothing really at this point that could change my mind that Rocky Thompson shouldn't be coaching the power play for the Philadelphia Flyers next year. Now, does it change the Flyers' opinion? Yeah, I could. If they finish out the year strong, above a 20% rate for the final 25-ish games of the year, yeah, because I don't think they want to fire Rocky Thompson. They think he is a smart guy, and they want him on this coaching staff. They are looking for reasons, I think, to hang on to Rocky Thompson because they think very highly of him. So the Flyers, yeah, I could easily see the Flyers talking themselves into keeping Thompson for another year coaching the power play. Sure.
No, I was just going to say, Bill actually brought up a really good idea that hilariously enough, Steve Jaco brought up this morning in our Slack chat for Broad Street Hockey. Danny Heatley's right there.
Fair enough.
If they want Thompson on the staff because he does other stuff well, okay. But like someone else clearly needs to be in charge of this thing. Yeah. Alex Appleyard tweeted at the stats the other day. Like he had 1 year in charge of San Jose's power play. I think they were 29th. They're 28th right now, and that's the best he's ever had as a coach of a power play. Like it's just like it ain't working. All right, we're running short on time here, so I'm going to get to today's Tankathon spin. That's right. We are going to spin that wheel in just a second. So as I said, the Flyers are 1-6-1 in their last 8, and their .473 points percentage is the 6th worst in the league. Saturday's game against the Pens. This is a big one for draft lottery order. Pittsburgh is .009 percentage points ahead of Philly with 1 game in hand. They need to lose this one. It's a big one. And then after the break, they play Edmonton, and then they have a home-and-home with the Penguins again. Big ones coming up before and after the Four Nations. Right now, they're 6th from the bottom. Brenna, spin that wheel. All right, they stayed 6th again. Last night, they stayed 6th as well. Charlie, I spun it myself just like on my laptop during postgame last night. Flyers moved up to 2, but Pittsburgh won. They got the number one pick. It
Ooh,
was
that would be rough.
was a rough one.
I don't want
That would be
two.
rough.
2 is cursed for us. I
Two is
don't
cursed.
want. I would rather have 6 than 2.
Give me
honestly.
6. I'll take 6
Yeah.
over 2.
Well,
all right.
2's
Well,
cursed.
I can tell you one thing, Bill. John Tortorella not going to be happy if he sees this because he went on an anti-tanking rant today about how players don't tank, and I get annoyed every time I hear it. Well,
don't
grow up, John. We don't want
I
for
don't
you.
want the players to tank, and they don't have to.
No.
Yeah.
They're just not good enough to win a ton of
They're good.
games, and I'm basing that on the evidence of them not winning a ton of games.
it's a reasonable point.
They're 6th from the bottom, and I don't know, like, is Ivan Fedotov suddenly going to be good? Is Sam
No.
Ersson going to keep this up? Him, like, not
No.
sucking for, like, I don't know. Like, is Kuzmenko going to stay in the lineup long enough to have a couple of goals? Like, they played one of their most entertaining games of the year last night. They lost in regulation. They blew a third-period lead. Like, what are we doing? All right. We have a few super chats, so I'm going to get to those before we wrap up. Brennan, let's see the super chats. All right. First one from Will Wadsworth. Seems like we have moved on to a new Flyers roster of silliness. No more 3 goalies, but how do y'all see the roster shaking out once everyone is healthy?
Well, they do have 3 goalies.
They have 3 right now, right?
Yeah, Kolosov's back. He is back. Now, how that'll play out after 4 Nations, I'm not sure. But how does the roster going to shake out? I don't know. I really don't. Because eventually Owen Tippett and Rasmus Ristolainen presumably are going to be back. They're going to need spots for those guys. Rodrigo Abols has played well, but might he get sent down just because they need room? Very possible. They've shown that they're willing to send Kolosov down, at least for stretches. They did that a few weeks ago. Now he's back, but at least they've opened the door to the possibility that he could spend time down in the AHL the rest of the season. Hey, I don't know how it's going to play out, but honestly, Will Wadsworth, just enjoy the roster silliness.
I will be a little disappointed for him because he hasn't done anything to earn a demotion at this point, but I'll accept if Rod the Bod gets sent down.
Rod the Bod. I dig it.
But Emil Andre, listen, I can accept that there may have been reasons to send him down the last time. That's over with now. He's clearly one of their 4 best defensemen, if not higher. He might be 2nd or 3rd. It's ridiculous if they send him down again. That's the only spot I actually care about.
Fair.
All right, let's see this next one from JH. Charlie, so glad you escaped Chicago's quote-unquote pizza.
Hey, what I will say, and I've always held this opinion, deep dish is good. It is good
It's just not
food.
pizza. Yeah,
It's just not pizza.
exactly.
Whatever.
It is a good meal.
Is it a sandwich?
It's just not pizza. No, it's not.
It's a
sandwich.
casserole.
It's a casserole. Honestly,
Casserole.
that's probably closer to what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Next one here from Gary B. Hey, PHLY fam, off to meet the Mad Russian. Love y'all. Let's go Flyers.
Oh yeah, there is a signing. Is like it's in a mall. There's a signing in a mall today.
This poor guy. He's got to go to like a Jersey mall or something and like have all these maniacs who he can barely understand screaming at. Good for him though. He gets to be out amongst the people, see how much everyone loves him, even if the coach is yelling nonsense at him. We love you. We love you. Make sure he feels the love, Gary B. All right, let's get another one in here from JH. How does the gang feel about Eagles' chance at hockey games? Go Birds.
I hate it. I hate it.
With the team in the spot they're in, both the football team and the hockey team, it is what it is. You know what would stop it? Play better.
I understand that, but also shut up. Like, let me have my hockey game. You can chant Eagles literally everywhere. You can chant it on the street. You can chant it at Wawa. You can do it like literally anywhere.
All right,
Look, can you just cheer for the Flyers for an hour? You'll be fine.
Before we wrap up, I just have to say we appreciate all of you watching on TV. Head over to allphly.com for more of the show. Charlie, where are you on EAGLES at non-Eagles events?
Okay, well, number one, I'm generally opposed to it, but there are some exceptions.
Yeah.
One exception would be I was totally fine with it, like right after they made the Super Bowl, right after they win the Super Bowl. That's fine. Everybody's excited. I get it. The one time I am very much in favor of it, and I actually find it hilarious, is when you do it at road games. I love that. That's good.
Yeah.
Because you're then exerting your dominance over the other team's fans by being like, we're not only here and chanting for the Flyers, we're here and chanting for the Eagles in your home arena. I dig that.
Yeah.
Honestly, you should make a point to do it like at the Prudential Center, maybe, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe go up to Newark and make a point to do it. But yeah, that's planting the flag, because that's not just like cheering for a specific team. That's saying we took over this joint.
Exactly.
Like this is that was for Ava, me actually using that word. All right, do we have another one? From Socrates
I'm
Johnson,
so sorry.
our boy.
I saw
By
that.
cursing super chat. Can Kelly read it? We're
I'm
really
sorry.
trying. Kelly, that was your first one in a while. I'm fully okay
sorry.
granting you that one.
All right.
All right.
It won't happen again.
I believe that's it. Oh, another one from Daft Digit. If I also curse at a super chat, will Kelly read it?
Stop trying to get me fired.
We'll
What's wrong with you people?
maybe we'll have like for extra YouTube content, like an uncensored show or something that doesn't air on Roku or anything, so we can do it.
Yeah.
Remember the drunk show from the Patreon? Maybe we'll do
yes.
that. All right. I believe that is. Oh, another one.
There's another one.
From Mellerman 4. More cursing super chats for the swear jar. I don't know where. Maybe we should have a swear jar. Maybe that's something we should do. There'd only be like $3 in it. Like we don't really. We
do pretty good.
We turned off the faucet pretty quick.
Yeah, I think we did a good job.
And that thing was on full force before we made an effort to stop it.
Well, you know what? The team kind of forced our hand on that.
Exactly.
All right. That is finally it. I really miscounted there, but whatever. I was told there'd be no math. That's Charlie's job. That is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Make sure you're following us right here on the YouTube. And we have something new for you on the YouTube. Our latest conversation with Rachel Dory went live like half an hour before today's show. So go check that out over there. Fun time talking about all the trades, 4 nations, really fun stuff. So make sure you check that out. Yeah, that was me today talking with Rachel this afternoon. So that was a good time. That's it. That is all the time we have for you. I'm Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. That's Kelly Hinkle. Until next time, go Birds!
Go Birds!